Let's please begin our meeting on July 23rd as we do our Pledge of Allegiance. Remember, it's one nation under God. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You know, what is in a logo? You probably have seen the FedEx logo many times in your life. I do not know if you know that there is an arrow inside of the logo. If you look between the E and the X, there is an arrow. What is the hidden message inside of a logo? This morning it was announced that Federal Express will merge with UPS. And they're now trying to figure out what their new logo is going to be with a company called Fed Up. But to talk to us about a great new Rotary logo, we have two of our stars, the past chair and the current chair of our Communications Committee, Valerie and Lonnie. Please, have the mic.
Good morning, Rotarians. Happy hot dog and vanilla ice cream day. As you know, everybody voted in May. The Communications Committee has been working on a new logo as part of a plan to rebrand the club. And so everyone voted. Just to give you a little background, when designing the logo, we really wanted something that reflected the heritage of our club, our past 100 years doing fabulous things here in Denver, but that also something that would reflect the future, what we envisioned Rotary for the next 100 years. So hopefully this does it for everyone. And Lauren, this is our new logo. You'll be seeing it. Yes. Woohoo! All right. And I'm going to turn it over to Lonnie.
Thank you. I wanted to just say just a couple of quick things about the logo. We wanted to really come up with something that represents this club, Club 31. And I think we really came up with a good logo. We had several people in Communications Committee that kind of worked on that. We had several put together, and then you, the membership, voted. So we were pretty excited that the membership got to pick on this. What I would say to you as the new incoming communications chair is if anybody's interested in helping, we're looking for help. If anybody has any expertise on marketing, communications, design, websites, we have quite a few things on the hopper of what we're going to try to do. And you can reach me at, look in the DB database. I'm in there under Lonnie Candell. But again, thank you guys for everything, and we look forward to the future of Rotary and Club 31.
Thank you, Valerie. Lonnie, please grab your seats. This is the new logo that will be used on our website. It is the logo that we're going to use for all our communication. Also, the theme for this year for Rotary is Be a Gift to the World, and this is somehow entangled here. There we go. Be a Gift to the World. That is the logo. On my lapel is the brand new Rotary International logo. It now has the word Rotary together with a wheel. So this is the brand new pin that is going to be used for Rotary. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you. I really love the power of that bell. So is Larry Gloss around? Larry Gloss? Will Schneider, are you around? So if we can have both Larry and Will come to the microphone, please, for the Secretary's report.
Thanks, President Andre. Well, today we have over 18 guests. So what I need to have happen is when I get to that point, if you would please stand, I'm going to run through the names. But I wanted to go through some announcements first. Your Rotary Club happy hour. Anybody attend happy hour before? Raise your hand. We need more people to do that. is being held at a new location this month at the Walnut Room on the 32nd and Walnut Street. And we thank Sean Gittin from the UMB Bank for hosting July's appetizers. Our next fellowship meeting will be July 30th, with one of the evening events on July 31st. Reservations deadline is today. Did I underline that? Today. Denver Rotary's second annual golf fellowship is the Pinehurst Country Club, hosted by Young Cho. Will be on Monday, August 17th. We'll need 80 golfers, 80, to make this happen. Deadline is July 31st. For more information, please see Young. Nope.
This is the only reason I came up, was to support the golf outing. Bring a friend, pack a lunch. You don't need to pack lunch. Lunch is provided. There's a great opportunity to network afterwards at Young's house. This is a fantastic opportunity to bring a potential member and have them come meet some of your Rotary pals. Come and join us on the 17th for golf at Pinehurst. Thanks.
Terrific. So sign up for both events and either call the Rotary office or register online via the event registration link provided in your weekly email blast. Do you all get your email blasts? Great. Please note the Rotary office will be closed this next week, July 27th through the 31st. So please get your fellowship reservations in now, as we will be unable to handle the typical last-minute Rotary requests for the meeting on the 30th. So you all know who you are. So make sure you get that done. The same is true for the peach sale. Get your orders in now. The deadline is July 31st. So I always thought it was important to be able to pronounce people's names. And we have a horde of people today. I'm sure it's because of our speaker, Vet. So we have Ann Toll, District 5450 Foundation Chair. Please stand. Thank you. Dan Hirschberger, 5450 Fundraising Chair. Great to have you. I won't introduce the Bowles family. That'll happen later. Chris Beasley is a new member. Thank you. Patricia Ross, same. Jessica Barkley. Thank you, Jessica. Christina, is it Rosdecki? Did they come close? Christine Kraft. And then the president of Denver Kids, McCloskey, Joe McCloskey. Great to have you today. And then Sam, is it, let me get this right. Bacon? Is he here? Son of Todd? Great to have you. Great. Well, you know, I just mentioned that there's a golf tournament coming up. And being a hacker, I always thought it was important to know what golfers do. And so I observed golfers. And so after 18 holes of golf, I observed some people coming back to the clubhouse. One gentleman was talking to the other, says, I can't wait till this next Thursday. And the other guy says, me either. I'm thirsty, let's go get a drink. The second thing I learned is that your best round of golf will follow your worst, predicated on the number of people that you tell. The third is that brand new golf balls are really water magnetic. Any of you have that problem? And the more expensive the golf ball, the more attraction it has to water. So the last thing I learned, and this comes from very good golfers who've been doing this all their life, is that the three woods can be demon-possessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry, for a great secretary's report. You know, I definitely do know that golf is a 4-letter word. And I've always wondered what would happen if we played golf with peaches instead of golf balls. Might be an interesting exercise. So, at any rate, we have lost one of our very own and one of our favorite members for a long, long time, Peter Bowes. And to read us his memorial resolution, please welcome Chuck Everill.
Fellow Rotarians and guests, we pause today in memory of our friend and fellow Rotarian Peter Bowes. Peter joined Club 31 on March 5th, 1963, and became president just 7 years later at age of 33. He remains the youngest president of our club. His father, Eugene, sponsored Peter into Club 31, and his brother, Nelson, also is a past member. Peter had a great sense of humor, but in a quiet and genteel way. I and many others chuckled out loud at his funeral when the pastor quoted Peter. Quote, "I always tried to respect people's time, and my funeral will be no different. We will start on time." And we did. So he went out with a laugh, and so too did he start his first meeting at club president. And this is a quote out of the Keyway back at that time. "If early riser you must be, please note the new location for tossing badges as you flee." And that was his entree into our club with a bit of poetic humor. As with many things, Peter was before his time with the now popular Bring Your Child to Work Day. His daughters were only 4 and 7 when he brought them to a Rotary meeting and had them help run the meeting. Peter's wife, Devin, said he was so proud of them and how beautifully they had handled their, quote, jobs, end quote. It was during Peter's presidency that the club sponsored its first new club, the Rotary Club of University Hills. For this, that club named him forever an honorary member of the club, for without him, the University Hills Club might not exist. And it was as was the case with many in this room today, I was honored to work with Peter on many projects. For nearly 8 years, we and other Rotarians founded and worked first as a Rotary committee and then as a community liaison support committee for ProComp, a joint project of Denver Public Schools and the Denver Classroom Teachers Association. Peter was so effective as a worker, leader, and counselor to all involved. The project had huge positive impacts on the schools, but the most critical one was the impact on the Denver Public School union relations. It literally changed after that project that lasted 8 years with lots of negotiations between the unions and management. And it established a landmark program in rewarding our best teachers. Peter was so many things: a fourth-generation Denver native, Stanford graduate, Marine Corps tank commander, respected real estate appraiser, community leader, and counselor. He was on the board of Downtown Denver, Inc., Downtown Denver Partnership, First National Bank, Rotary, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and Havern School. He was national president of the American Institute of Real Estate Appraisers in 1986, as well as serving in many other capacities throughout the years. Peter also served the Counselors of Real Estate in many roles and was honored by the CRE organization with their 2 top awards, the James Felt Creative Counseling Award and the prestigious Landauer White Award in 2007. His involvement in major landmark Denver projects is legendary, including instrumental roles in appraisals of Lowry, Fitzsimmons, Stapleton, Central Platte Valley, Coors Field, Invesco Field, and the Pepsi Center. He practiced the Rotary mission, service above self. He served the community, his profession, his family, his country, and his God. He was a man of principle and integrity. He was a fellow of both the Denver Rotary Club Foundation and the Rotary Foundation. We express our deepest sympathy to his wife, Devin. And Devin, would you stand and stay standing? Their daughters, Karen and Amy, and will you stand as well and stay standing? And their 6 grandchildren and the greater Bose family. But I also wanted to introduce a very special friend of Peter's, Laura Feedy, who I also would like to have stand. And Laura was a business associate of Peter's for 30 years, basically his right-hand person. So, Mr. President and fellow Rotarians, I move the adoption of this memorial for Peter Bose by a standing vote of our members.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you very much for the Bose family for being here today. And let's keep the whole family in our prayers, please. Now, for new member introductions, we have 2 of them. We will have our paralegal extraordinaire and leader of our membership committee in the past, Mark Donovan.
Thank you, President Andre. I'm very proud today to be able to introduce 2 new members to our club. First of all, I'd like to introduce Rachel Hartgen, who's the newest member of our Emerging Professionals group. Rachel?
Thanks. Thank you, Mark. My name is Rachel. I grew up in Twin Falls, Idaho, where I like to joke that there are far more cows and potatoes than people. That's our claim to fame. I went to Baylor University for my undergraduate degree, and afterwards I was a Rotary Scholar in Central America. So it was a great experience for me to get introduced to Rotary, and I had the opportunity to work with several local Rotarians in Central America. After my time in Central America, I came back to the United States to get a master's degree in economics and in international development from the University of Denver. And I started working with small, internationally focused nonprofits here in Denver. I then set out for Washington, D.C., a big city for me as an Idaho gal, and worked there for about 4 years on USAID, DFID, and World Bank projects. And after about 4 years in D.C., I decided that I wanted to head back west. So I came back to Denver about 2 years ago to return to what I think is really my true passion, smaller nonprofits that are focused on improving the lives of women and girls internationally. I started a social enterprise called Women's Partnership Market with a friend of mine that focuses on working with female artisans worldwide. And I'm now also the executive director for an organization called Soul Foundation, which stands for Supporting Opportunities for Ugandans to Learn. And we work in 14 rural communities in Uganda. Since I was a Rotary Scholar, I've been connected and interested in Rotary, and I knew that as soon as my roots settled a little bit, I wanted to join a club, and I was introduced to the Young Professionals cohort and really fell in love with that group and what Club 31 was doing. Since then, I've had a chance to get involved more with the Young Professionals cohort and also the World Service Committee, and am enjoying getting more involved in that. So I look forward to getting to know all of you more and getting more involved in Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'd also like to introduce a new member to our club, Luke Lee.
Thank you. If you listen to sports radio, it's a common introduction on the Dan Patrick Show. Luke Lee, 6'5", 230, and they hit the bell. I too am from Idaho. I was raised in Coeur d'Alene. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. My dad was at dental school. I'm the second of 8 children. And I've got two brothers that don't remember me not married, if that gives you a kind of a range. My youngest brother's on a LDS mission in Boston, and he only knows me with my wife. I'm a proud husband to my wife of 14 and a half years. We have 5 of our own children, ranging in ages. I've got 4 boys, starting at 12 years old, and my youngest is just under 2 years right now, and a daughter, Sawyer, who's 6, who's starting first grade here this fall. I enjoy the outdoors. I spend all the time I can with my family. We just returned from a couple weeks vacation where I spent half the time in Newport Beach with my wife's family and half the time with my dad's family up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I enjoy hunting, fishing, taking road trips. Got to throw this in for my wife. They're coming home tomorrow on the tail end of just under 4,000-mile road trip over the last 4 weeks. And my wife did 2/3 of it by herself, with me flying home and doing the middle section with them. I try to be active. I've been a Boy Scout leader. I'm an Eagle Scout. Back in 1992, I earned that. And my 2 oldest boys and now my 3rd son are all involved with scouting as well. Like I said, I hail from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I served a full-time 2-year mission in the Florida Tampa and Florida Orlando missions back in the late 90s. My mission taught me the value of service. It taught me the value of putting others before self in word and deed. Not only that, but my church in general, the LDS churches, if you're familiar with them, first responders when there are disasters anywhere in the world, sending all sorts of relief and millions of dollars in help. My current position with my church, lay position, but I work with the missionaries, and I really enjoy that. Graduated from Brigham Young University in 2003 with a degree in sociology, and then from Boise State University in 2006 with a second undergrad in construction management. My wife and I met in 99 and graduated a few years later. We both graduated. And then I went to University of Idaho for law school, and I quickly learned while in law school I didn't like law school, and I did not want to pursue law school. I learned a lot about myself at law school, but the positives were I shot my first elk and deer and was able to eat that meat and feed my family that first year. And then I went to Boise State where I got a second undergrad, which I loved very much and I excelled at. After graduating, I accepted a position here in Denver with Kiewit, working heavy highway, and then worked in the vertical market. And now I'm in parking, so do the math. There is none. But I'm probably the only parking operator that can say that they built garages before they ever managed them. And that's a very unique market for me and my company, as I've been able to, as you've seen all the growth, be a consultant for a lot of these developers because there aren't any other parking operators out there that have built and managed these garages. I'm active in NAIOP as well, if you've ever heard of NAIOP, NAIOP, the National Association of Industrial and Office Professionals, and BOMA, Building Owners and Managers Association, where I was the allied chair and received an award last year for being an allied member. My company is Douglas Parking. Many of you probably saw David Douglas was here a few months ago with Justin Montgomery, who was also a member of our company at the time, and David was the president of Rotary number 3 in Oakland. And that's where I have gotten my draw to Rotary and seeing what he's been able to do there. We've had great success here in Denver, and we've been able to help a lot of folks like you that have a little bit of property here and there and learn that we can put parked cars on them, eliminate some of the liability on your side, and make some money to help offset those costs. And made a lot of people happy. We were very focused on people. Life is about people. If nothing else I've learned in my 37 years on this earth, life is about people. And remember that. It doesn't matter what we do. I just happen to be in parking. But if you focus on the people, your life will be grand. You'll have a lot of memories, and you'll touch people's lives. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel we have a biblical day today with Rachel and Luke. And I want to welcome both of you to our club. And I'm going to present you with... As you see, we've changed a little bit the introductions, and normally at the end, I would like to ask them a couple of quick questions instead of reading that long proclamation that we used to read. But we are out of time, so I'm just going to ask us to give them the traditional Rotary welcome to our club, please. Now for a little bit of recognition for the people that have been supporting our foundation. Can we have Don Lewis come to the podium, please?
Good afternoon. First slide, please. While we're calling up the first slide, oh, good, good. Well, one of my jobs today is to talk just briefly about peaches. The Rotary Foundation benefits from 50% of the proceeds of the peach sale. Folks in the community and around the world will benefit when you buy and sell peaches at our peach sale. They'll also benefit if you attend the pancake breakfast on August the 8th and work at the distribution of the peaches on August the 8th. It's fun. Come and join us. It'll be a great time. I'm also here to recognize some folks for Paul Harris Fellow, Paul Harris Society recognitions today. As I call your name, if each of you could come up front, Darlene will give you your pen, and if you could stay up here until everyone has come up, that would be great. And please hold your applause until we get to that part of the program. First, we have new Paul Harris Society members. Could Young Cho please come forward? Young is a new Paul Harris Society member and also a new Paul Harris Fellow +4. Next, Wayne Shell. Please hold your applause until the end because we are running short on time. Sorry. Wayne Shell, please come forward if you're here. He's a new Paul Harris Society member and also a new Paul Harris Fellow +3. Mary Penny, could you come up, please? Mary is also a new Paul Harris Society member and a Paul Harris Fellow +1. We also have several new multiple Paul Harris Fellows today. Gene Herman, if you're here today, if you could come up because you're a new Paul Harris Fellow +8 and an existing Paul Harris Society member. Paul Harris Fellow +8 is as high as you can go in the Paul Harris Fellow giving chain. And if you're interested in knowing about all of that recognition, there's a summary in the red containers at your table and also a display over on the other side that will give you an orientation to what these are all about. Next, Sue Davis Hornby. Could you come up, please? Sue Davis Hornby is a new Paul Harris Fellow +8, a Paul Harris Society member, and also a Bequest Society member. Next, Don Lewis is Paul Harris Fellow +7. He's an existing Paul Harris Society member and a Bequest Society member. Next, Bob Laudermilk. Bob is a Paul Harris Fellow +7 and also an existing Paul Harris Society member. Next, we have Marlene Wilkins. Marlene is a new Paul Harris Fellow +6. She is also a major donor to the Rotary Foundation and a member of the Bequest Society. Next, we have Jim Warner. Jim is a new Paul Harris Fellow +6. Wynn Gendera, could you come up, please? Wynn is a Paul Harris Fellow +5 and a existing Paul Harris Society member. Debbie DeMuth is a new Paul Harris Fellow +5. Tom Vincent is a new Paul Harris Fellow +3. Reich Wooten is a new Paul Harris +3. Mark Donovan, who was just here, is a new Paul Harris Fellow +3 and an existing Paul Harris Society member. Jim Wiltshire is a new Paul Harris Fellow +3 and also a member of the Paul Harris Society. Giles Paulson is a new member of the Paul Harris Fellow +3 and an existing Paul Harris Society member. Carol Duncan is a Paul Harris Fellow +2 and a Paul Harris Society member. Those are all of the multiple Paul Harris Fellows, but last but not least, we have some new Paul Harris Fellows, which is a great beginning on the giving journey to the Rotary Foundation. Paul Krapp, if you're here today, could you come up as a new Paul Harris Fellow? Ron Sherbert is also a new Paul Harris Fellow. And someone that I know really well, Brenda Lewis, is a new Paul Harris Fellow, and also a Bequest Society member. Those are all of them. Please join me in congratulating all of these folks. Oh, this is just wonderful. Thank you so much for the standing ovation. Just one quick thing. Chick-fil-A has graciously agreed to give everyone who contributed to the Rotary Foundation this past fiscal year a free Chick-fil-A sandwich dinner. And so come see me if you've given to the foundation, and I will have a card for you. And thank you so much, Sandeep Kapoor, for your gracious donation.
Thank you, Don, Sandeep, and of course, all of our contributors. We live and die by our foundation. In the interest of time, we're going to now have Jim Mack, our illustrious past president, come and introduce our speaker.
That's great. Remember that. It's my pleasure today to introduce Ved Nanda as our speaker. Ved is Evans University professor and Thompson G. Mars Professor of Law at the Denver University. He's taught there since 1965. We are fortunate to have Ved as a fellow Rotarian and a good friend. And I could spend the next 15 minutes listing the many accomplishments and awards of Ved. If you're like me, you'd rather hear Ved speak. Please welcome Ved Nanda to present the Islamic State's onslaught in Iraq and Syria. What is the effective response?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Illustrious Past President. And don't forget it. I'm deeply honored to be with you. What you saw a moment ago is what has brought all of us to Rotary, and that is service above self. And what the Rotary Foundation does, and what the committees working for Rotary Foundation do, our own World Community Service, absolutely it is unequivocally the best deal that you can ever see and do. In so many countries, helping so many people, and without seeking any reward. And that is what we are all about. And that is why I joined the Rotary, and that is why you joined the Rotary. Today I have with me two guests, my wife Catherine Nanda, and she is the one whose dad and my father-in-law, a proud member of this Rotary, Cal Coons. He introduced me to the Rotary, and those who were in the Rotary during that time, in the 60s, 70s, know I started in 79. And then the center that is there, Vedananda Center for International Law, its coordinator, Anne, is here. Anne? So these are the two people. I am going to be talking today about an issue that I don't think that we can ignore. We could not ignore what happened in 9/11. We can't ignore what is happening all around the world. And the so-called Islamic State, whether you call it ISIS, you call it ISIL, you call it Daesh, and I have a little propaganda for you that you probably saw on the table. There is an outline, and on the other side is a map of the area from Baghdad, and as you go toward Syria and Damascus, all that area, Sunni populated area, is at the present time in the control of ISIS. Well, why should we be concerned? We were concerned after 9/11 with Al-Qaeda. This is another incarnation of Al-Qaeda. It was Al-Qaeda in Iraq that became ISIS. And the reason simply was that ISIS wanted to go way beyond what Al-Qaeda did. Al-Qaeda was the one that simply said, we are going to teach the West a lesson, and we are going to hurt the West. Unlike Al-Qaeda, ISIS said, no, that's not all. We want to go a step beyond. We are going to create a caliphate in this part of the world. It will be caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and eventually will take over the whole world in a way. And that would be Sharia in all those countries, and caliphate that ought to be what we seek, and that ought to be what we deserve. And so it started attracting people from all over the world, and religious fervor and extremism and extreme form of Islam, Wahhabism and Salafism, and that is what at the present time ISIS is. How did it get created? As probably many of you know, in Iraq, al-Maliki, who was the prime minister and we had put him in power, he created divisions that already existed, exacerbating them between Shias and Sunnis. And Sunnis were the ones who were totally disenfranchised, and Sharias are the ones whom he wanted to put on a pedestal, and alienated so many of those Sunnis in that Anbar province. You heard last year about Mosul, the second largest city. You heard about Ramadi last month, that ISIS has taken over. And at the present time, the difficulty with all that is that after a year of our air strikes on those ISIS targets, our strategy has not succeeded in what President Obama has said, degrading and defeating and destroying ISIS. So what can be done? What should be done? Because in Syria, you have Assad creating a great deal of chaos, millions of people who are at the present time refugees. There are millions who at the present time are outside their homes and who can't go back to their homes, and they are uprooted. And there are hundreds of thousands dead. In Iraq, alienated Sunnis. You may recall that in 2007, we had the Sunni awakening. The United States had made an effort. There was a surge. But at the same time, what we did was, we tried to win hearts and minds of those people, Sunnis, in that part of the country, Anbar province. the province that presently is taken by ISIS. And it's not simply Iraq, it's not simply Syria, but there are 1,000 people from the West, young people who are attracted each year by ISIS, and they are there working with ISIS at the present time. There are about 150 from the United States. There are probably about 3,500 from the Western countries, West Europe. And the problem simply is that these jihadi Salafists who have become extreme, they are going to come home. And ISIS has been saying, it's not simply in that part of the world, but we are going to have these people go back to their own countries and there start their cells of these extremist views. And they ought to be the ones who have to strike the Western countries. We don't need to send people from the Middle East to do that. And there are presently, according to CIA last year, 35,000 warriors that ISIS has. Our strategy has been airstrikes, build a coalition of countries that might have boots on the ground, help Iraqi forces, train them, train some Syrian rebels, and all of that, as you can see, has so far not succeeded. President Obama has said, no boots on the ground. It was, as you recall, in 2011, when we said all our troops are going to be out of Iraq. And at that time, Maliki had said that we are not going to accept your conditions of having immunity for your own soldiers in this country, and we don't want them. And we came home. Presently, about 3,000 American troops there simply training those people. And you saw that in Mosul, in Ramadi, in many parts of that Anbar province, Iraqi soldiers did not stand up to that onslaught of ISIS. Our armament went into their hands, and they, at the present time, all over that province, they are starting to govern. The question that comes to your mind and my mind is, are they able to be able to govern? And I have put in, if you saw that, and I want to simply mention to you, these are the myths that I mentioned to you about ISIS. One, that ISIS is irrational. I think partly that is true. But at the same time, please know that it is an ideology, it's a movement, it has religious fervor, and because of all that, it's different than Al-Qaeda. Second, I said, ISIS is indestructible. There are some who feel it cannot be defeated, it is invincible, but at the present time we have seen that where they are, because of their brutality, because of what they have done, those execution videos, you have seen these women who have been sexual slaves for them. They have slaughtered all the people who don't believe in their extreme Islamism, and all those who are minorities. You saw the Yazidis on the Sinjar mountain that had been there for many months, simply in the sun being baked and not able to get out. And at the present time, even in those cities and states where they are in the Anbar province, they have been brutal. But they have started governing. And I would simply say that they are not indestructible, because there are many more like them in the past also who started with that kind of fervor and could not govern because they were terrorists, and they were good terrorists. But now they are governing, and they are bad governors. And the amazing part about them is that at the present time, everybody hates them. It's not simply the West. Even Muslims, Sharias obviously hate them, but even Sunnis who have been alienated because of chaos, because of corruption, because of all those ills that have been part of Iraq and Syria, that even those Sunnis don't like them. But at the same time, I have said the third one, that the U.S. can destroy ISIS, and that is a myth. We can't do it alone. We do need to have, in that part, Sunni part, at least partners with us. And if nothing else, those Sunnis have to stand up to them, and maybe they can't take a very strong stand, but they must not support them. And if we could do it in the past with that Sunni awakening, there is no reason that we cannot do it again. And finally, I said, ISIS will collapse under its own weight. That is true. Everybody dislikes them. But at the same time, we do need to remember history. And history has shown us that in the past also, many of these very brutal regimes, they still become revolutionary regimes. Bolsheviks, the Soviet Union, China under communists. You have examples, even the French Revolution. What happened after that? And all that brutality continued for a period of time. And there were those who said they are going to die, they are going to collapse, they are going to not able to thrive because of their own weight. They'll collapse. And it didn't happen. So I think all these things bring to our mind that ISIS is a big threat, not simply to that region. We have interest in that region. We want stability in the Middle East. But more than that, we do want to see that values that the United States has always espoused. You remember Marshall Plan, help to Europe to stand on its own feet. You remember that from the very beginning, we have talked about democracy, human rights, rule of law, human dignity, and those are the values that we don't want, under any circumstances, to be simply destroyed because of what ISIS wants to do in that region and what ISIS would like to do its own followers in the Western countries to hit at the Western interests. So I think at this stage, what should we be doing? I'm going to stop very quickly. I wanted to just talk about it in bullet points. 3 things I have mentioned here. One is that we need to see that again. Now it's Abadi. He is the prime minister who has said that he is going to bridge all those differences between Sunnis and Shiites. But the trouble simply is that Iran has sent some of those Shiite militias, and you probably have heard and read about them, that many of them, their signature part was simply to see that if there are Sunnis, drill their heads, kill them by torturing them. And at the present time, Sunnis do not have a great deal of faith in the Shiite regime out of Afghanistan, out of Baghdad. Kurds, Peshmerga, they are the only ones who at the present time are fighters that have got heart, fighters that have got resolute minds, fighters who are at the present time making sure that ISIS does not move into their parts. So the first thing is to see that Sunnis in that Anbar province are on board. Second is that we do need at the present time more United States assistance, not simply by airstrikes, not simply by 3,000 people. I don't have the time to go into all the details, and I am aware of the fact we in this country are tired of wars. Afghanistan, Iraq, it has given us a pause, both of these wars. We don't want any more war in that part of the world. But at the same time, we need more American soldiers in that part, not maybe in a combatant fashion, but 3,000 are not going to suffice. And the third part is that we need at the present time to change our strategy and to make sure that from Egypt to Jordan to many of these countries, even Saudi Arabia and others, that they are not on board simply to say that they are on board, but they are on board with their troops there, with fighting ISIS. And my simple statement is that the United States, with its lead, with its own values that we cherish, we cannot permit ISIS to win. And my own feeling is ISIS will be defeated, we will be the lead, and the United States, you and I, will be proud that we have done that. Thank you very much.
Club 31, we have time for a few questions.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to share my thoughts with you, and you always have been so very, very kind to me. I'm happy to answer a couple questions.
Ved, thank you so much. I recently saw an article by Fordham Law which analyzed cases in the United States where people, about 60 or so U.S. citizens in particular, had been convicted of conspiring with ISIS. And it seems like ISIS's intent is not only to establish the caliphate, like you mentioned, but they're also advocating particular individuals to conduct lone man attacks against law enforcement, military, and others, like we see with Chattanooga. And I was wondering if you could comment on that and what potential steps we might take to address it.
I'm sorry, I did not quite get the question. The question is?
I was wondering if you could comment on ISIS's goal to utilize individuals here in the United States to conduct terrorist attacks against law enforcement and military personnel like Chattanooga, and what steps, if any, we can take.
Thank you very much. I think at the present time, the United States and the West have not succeeded in this propaganda war. I think ISIS has been very, very successful in social media. And the need at the present time is that we also ideologically and in terms of our own message able to convey to people that ISIS is not the answer. At the present time, what has happened is, you're absolutely right, not only in the West, but now in Libya, in Yemen, in many other countries, they are asking those countries to be the provinces of ISIS. And in the West, they are asking, you're absolutely right, that these people who are following ISIS, that they ought to kill, especially law enforcement officials. So I think we need more intelligence. Intelligence is being strengthened by the United States. We need many centralized efforts to be made. At the present time, the United States has so many departments and so many agencies that each one of it has its own special way of dealing with it. Why we need to have centralized, we need to have specialized efforts made in that direction.
Thank you very much. I think that there are a number of people in this room that would agree with you, that stand with what you say. Yet it seems like in Washington, there's an inherent frustration in that it seems like we know that this is necessary, but it doesn't seem anything is going in that direction. What's your response to that?
My response is that Washington, unfortunately, has been dysfunctional for many years now. And I think at the present time, Washington cannot move until the civil society in this country compels our own decision makers to be at the present time rational, look at problems, set priorities, and take action. And I think that is where leaders in this room who have got a say with the decision makers need to put pressure upon them And in our own schools, in our own churches, in our all civil society organizations, we need to make sure that we compel the government to take the right action and to be functional in Washington and not be dysfunctional as they have been all along.
Thank you, Professor Nanda. And I have a question. There was a documentary you may have seen or heard of on, I believe, CNN, involving a German journalist who went into ISIS, was practically invited by them. But one theme he brought back was the people of ISIS say, yes, they do want American boots on the ground coming after them, as in they would like to kill as many Americans as possible. So I just wondered about your reaction to that.
I'm not asking that we send 150,000 as we did earlier. That's not what I'm saying. And I totally agree with American boots not there to be on the ground, because we are not trusted by people in that part of the world anyway. And after Iraq and Afghanistan, there is not that kind of clout that we need in order to be able to do the right thing. But at the same time, I think not 150,000, but not simply 3,000. We need more soldiers to be able to train those people and to see that Iraqis at the present time have Shia-Sunni divide come to an end. That is the only way that we can succeed. I'm so sorry that we didn't have the time to go into it, but I'm here and I'm at your command anytime. And those of you who want to come to the law school. People come to law even after third and fourth careers, and many of you are in that stage. Thank you.
It is so eye-opening when we bring speakers like Professor Nanda. And as you know, where are you? Where is he? We will inoculate 150 children in the world against polio in your honor. Thank you very much for your presentation and your time. Isn't it wonderful when we have a speaker of this caliber? And the hope is that it'll open up the discussions in your tables, at home, in the office, about the stuff that you hear at Rotary, so you'll continue to spread the word. You know, in 1989, I was in Louisville taking Leadership Louisville, and the west end of Louisville was predominantly African-American, extremely poor, high crime, with no hope. One of their preachers came and talked to us, and he said, you know what, if you're the captain of a ship, and the alarm goes off, and it says, there's a huge leak aft. What do? You say, seal the compartment and let them fend for themselves? Or do you say, all hands on deck, go and combat the flood? And the problem is, he said, if the west end goes down, you don't understand that the whole ship will go down. And the same thing is, I think we're in a global economy. So hearing presentations like this, where we get to understand that we do play a global role, and that it is no longer just about our own backyard, and that we have to play our part. So thank you very much, and it's very inspirational. So next week, where are we going to go? Not here. It's going to be dark. Okay. So we're going to have several meetings. You have to sign up for meetings. We have, I think, 4 on Thursday and 1 on Friday. And it is my sincere hope that you will take advantage of hearing from our Rotarians in their own businesses, or in one of their cases for a great wine tasting in somebody's home. To send you off with part of the 4-way test, I'd like to remind you